Today I want to talk about the ruler archetype. Now, I've said this a couple of times throughout the whole series. I said that as I progress through the videos, I'm going to give you a little bit more detail about the archetypes and use different examples and different viewpoints just to make sure everybody understands the concept by the time we get to the end of the series. So, in the other videos, I explained by using the athlete example. So I'm going to use that again, but I'm going to put a different spin on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the athletes and I'm going to actually create archetypes so that you can see how it works. And then we'll draw the parallel between the actual archetypes and the ones we just made with the athletes. Now, if you already understand the concept of archetypes, you don't have to watch this part. You can skip it. The timestamp is in the description. Just go to that time and it will take you straight into the ruler archetype. Now, our physical bodies have different attributes and different aspects that allows us to do various things in this life. For example, running, swimming, and picking up heavy things. Now, you don't have to be an athlete to need these attributes. I mean, we use it in our daily lives. If you want to run somewhere or get there fast or walk a long distance, you're going to tap into that ability of the body. If you have to move your furniture, all of these things we use in our daily lives. But in order to do that activity, we need a certain attribute, like speed, strength, or whatever it may be. And if that's not developed, we can't do that. So I'm going to explain to you the concept of archetypes by using the athlete example, but from a different perspective. Now, if I tell you to think of an athlete that focuses on increasing the speed at which our bodies can move, you'll probably think of a sprinter. If I say think of an athlete that can pick up heavy things and that's mastering the body's strength and power, you'll probably think of a powerlifter. Another one, think of an athlete that focuses on developing flexibility, balance, and body movement. You'll probably think of a gymnast. Let's do two more to get the point across. Think of an athlete that develops the body's lung capacity and ability to move underwater. You'll probably think of a swimmer. Last one. Think of an athlete that focuses on toughening up their body so that they can use it as a weapon. You'll probably think of a martial artist. Now, obviously, these athletes focus on more than what I just said, but that's the image that comes up. So if you think of speed, the image of the sprinter comes up. So if I say to you, you must work on your sprinter aspect, I mean work on speed. Okay? Now that's how the archetypes work. Now remember, any normal healthy human being can run, can swim, can pick up things. It just depends on how much they develop that aspect, that they work on their strength, that they develop their balance, that they develop their cardio or endurance or leg strength or whatever the case is. If they worked on that attribute, they can pull it off. So when life puts them in a situation, they can handle it. Now the archetypes work the same. We have to develop and work on those aspects, just like you would if I say to you, you have to go run a certain distance in a couple of months. You're going to have to develop the ability to be able to do that. You're going to have to run and you're going to have to work on your cardio and all that kind of stuff. Then you can handle it. Now the inner attributes that's represented by the image of the archetypes work in exactly the same fashion. So let's just recap on this before we go into the ruler archetype. Now what you see here is these are 5 examples of how the imagery of the athlete could represent an aspect of our bodies. So for example, speed could be represented by the image of the sprinter. Strength and power, the image of the powerlifter. Balance, flexibility and body movement, the image of the gymnast. Lung capacity and underwater movement, the image of the swimmer. And lastly, hardening the body for combat can be represented by the image of the martial artist. So now, just like we have those physical attributes, we have non-physical ones as well. So here you see, similar to the athlete example, each archetype is just an image that represents a part of ourselves. So our ability for leadership and order is represented by the image of the ruler. Intellect, insight, knowledge and intuition, the image of the magician. Action, courage, strength and discipline is the image of the warrior. Emotions, connection and pleasure, the image of the lover. Caretaking, healing and providing is represented by the image of the nurturer. Now the image you see in front of you now, where they're placed and the colors has got no significance whatsoever. It's just like that so you can have a visual representation to show you that all of these archetypes represent qualities we have within ourselves. And yes, you have a dominant archetype, which I'll get into later, but you want to try and work on all of these things to try and balance yourself so that you can become a balanced, all-rounded human being. So like I said in the other videos, the concept of archetypes is very broad and different people use it in different ways. They put different spins on it. me included. I'm using the concept of archetypes to represent the different sides of you that you tap into in life, the different abilities, the different skills that you might have or might not have. So now the same with the ruler archetype. The ruler archetype represents the side of you that can lead, whether that's a group or lead a project or lead your family. That's the ruler archetype. It also represents your ability to create order and structure in different situations. So pretty much see it like someone who can create order out of chaos. That's a nice phrase to just to make it stick. Then I'm talking about the ruler archetype. So this ruler is just an image that represents that side of you, those abilities, those skills. And remember, each archetype you can be undercharged, balanced, or overcharged. So if you're undercharged, it means that you are lacking the qualities of the ruler archetype. In other words, you won't be a strong leader. You'll be easily overwhelmed, and when you are in charge of a situation, you'll struggle to manage it and to create order. Where on the other side, if you're overcharged, you become too much. You become a tyrannical leader that leads with aggression, and usually they want to be respected through fear. Now, I'll get into these two sides of the ruler archetype in part 2. We're going to look at the balanced ruler in this video. So now when we're talking about the ruler, first thing that probably comes to mind is a king or a queen. Now, yes, there's a king and a queen archetype in many different, you could say, frameworks or systems or whatever you want to call it. But I've taken that and put them under the name of the ruler because it's much easier for people to understand as a quick reference guide to say, you know what, my ruler side needs a bit of work. Let's go with the imagery of the king and the queen, okay? They have a kingdom that they rule over. So this kingdom is just a metaphor. Well, I'm going to use it metaphorically to refer to your household. It can be a business that you have or a project that you're busy with. Anything that you could say metaphorically is your kingdom. And it's quite interesting. The ruler archetype also represents the side of you that can be a loving and protecting parent. So obviously there are other archetypes I'll still get into, like the lover and the nurturer. And the nurturer especially comes into play in parenthood. But so does the ruler. You must be a good king or a queen to create a good kingdom, you see? And that kingdom is the place that you live. So for example, if you've got children, your children is part of your kingdom. And if your kingdom is not a good kingdom, the people within the kingdom won't be happy. So your job is to balance out that ruler archetype so that you can create a happy, flourishing, balanced kingdom. But in order to do that, you have to be a balanced ruler. Otherwise, you're going to create an imbalanced kingdom because you're an imbalanced ruler. When it comes to leadership, you'll see, I don't know if you've ever had this in your life. Maybe you're with people. You're at a get-together or something. And someone comes into the room, or maybe your eye catches them and you're like, hey, who's this? The thing that the ruler archetype has got when it's in its balanced form, its properly developed stage, that person will have a very strong presence, very strong. So in other words, they will stand out. They will have a silent power about them simply by just being who they are, just being themselves. There's a power about them, a strong presence that radiates from them. That's why people who have a very strong developed ruler side, they're usually very charismatic and people usually follow them because they have this ruler archetype and this ruler vibe they're giving off. So that's very important. And as you develop this side, that will come more apparent. People will notice it without you having to say anything. Because if you make that internal change and you become stronger, more balanced and secure, that internal change will reflect in your external behavior. How you conduct yourself, your posture, how you talk, and how you treat people will all change because of that. And that's what you want. So whether you're a king or a queen, you need that stability, that secureness, that confidence. And that comes with developing this side of you. You become confident. You don't have to prove yourself. You feel secure. Now, in order to get to a point where you're secure and balanced, you're going to have to go through the process of self-discovery. So many people don't know themselves. And if you want to have a balanced ruler archetype and you want to become a strong leader, you have to know yourself. See it like you have to study yourself. You have to know exactly what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, where your limits are. You need to know yourself. With that comes another sense of calmness, acceptance, and secureness. I know myself, I know what I can handle, and I know what I can't handle. And now I can play to my strengths. You see, so you need to work on that. And in order to do that, you're going to have to break free from everything that's not you. Everything that's been programmed into your mind throughout your life, negative habits, false beliefs, perceptions. You're going to have to work through that until you break free and get in touch with the true you. And that's a very big trait with the ruler archetype. And I'm going to give you an example why it's so important. One of the things that the ruler must be able to do is you have to be able to stand strong in adversity and stay calm and stay level-headed because you're the leader. You must make decisions. So for example, if you have children, they're looking up to you to lead. They're looking at you to make the decisions, right? So if you're going to lose it and be a mess, you're the pillar of strength. They're looking to you to lead, to create safety, to create stability. You're the one that's supposed to do that. So the balanced ruler, if your ruler side is properly developed, you'll be able to stay calm. And what's nice about this is in martial arts, we call this the immovable mind. And what that is pretty much like you create a fortress within. So when things go bad on the outside, around you, there's adversity and all sorts of things, everything's going to crap basically. You've got the ability to stay calm, stay centered, stay rooted, and just make, a calm, level-headed decision and say, okay, you know what, this is a disaster, but this is what we're going to do. You don't lose it. An easy way to think about this is think of someone standing in a storm and the wind blows them off into the air because they're not grounded. The balanced ruler is grounded. The balanced ruler stays calm when they're in a tough situation. They understand that in order to have clarity, they have to be calm and focused. And they've mastered this ability to be calm when things are going bad. Now, this storm can represent any bad situation in life. So let's say you lose your job and there's no income. The balanced ruler is not going to lose it and panic and, everything's just going to get worse. No, the balanced ruler will remain calm. Say, okay, you know what, this is a bad situation, but we'll make a plan. This is what we're going to do. They stay really calm. So that's one of the traits you'll have if this is balanced and it's been developed properly. So the other thing I want to get to, and I've mentioned this a little bit in the other videos, is that you will have a dominant archetype. And what I mean by dominant archetype is it's the side of you that you tap in the most. It's like your primary. So for example, in most situations, I act with my ruler. I act like well, if you say you act like a king, people think like, hey, bow before me. That's not what I mean. You act with your ruler side. So in other words, you'll be the first one to try and lead the situation. You'll step up and say, okay, you know what, I'll take control. You'll be someone who creates order. You like order. You don't like things when it's not structured. You need structure. For example, let's take a very easy thing to relate to. Let's say your desk where you're working in your study or wherever is very messy. If you are king or queen, in other words, ruler, archetype, dominant, you won't like that, okay? You will need order and structure. You'll be like, no. Let's put everything where it's supposed to be. Let's just clean this up. Let's create some structure. Let's create some order. That will be your first response. And you will do that in most situations. When things are going bad, your first response will be, let's create order. Let's just create structure for a second, and then we can move forward. Those are traits that you'll have if you are dominant in this archetype. Your personality will be like that. Now, the big question is, are you balanced, or are you overcharged or undercharged? And that I'll get into in part 2. Now, just to elaborate a little bit on the dominant archetype concept, what it basically is, it's the main perspective that you hold when you approach things in life. So for example, you view most stuff, most situations through the lenses of the ruler archetype or through the lenses of the magician archetype. That's your primary. That's your dominant archetype. You find yourself tapping into that area the most. Now, if you're dominant in an archetype, it doesn't mean that it's balanced. You can be imbalanced. Just to give you an idea regarding the ruler, If your ruler is underdeveloped, you will lack order, structure, and your kingdom will be chaotic. It will be unorganized. If you're excessive, overly developed in the ruler, then you will be obsessed with order, with structure, almost military-like. The imbalanced ruler likes to pull others down to push themselves up. Because they're insecure, they want to, you could say, make others doubt themselves, make them feel weak so that they can feel more powerful. The balanced ruler doesn't do that. They don't have to do that. What the balanced ruler does, it actually builds others up. So what the balanced ruler does, let me give you this example in household. You're a parent, whether you're a mother or a father. You would want your partner to grow. This is very important. If you're imbalanced in the ruler archetype, you will be threatened by that. So for example, if your partner shows any form of power or individuality, or you could say autonomy, you would be threatened by that and say, no, 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 no. We don't roll like that. And you will, depending if you're on the weaker side, like the undercharged side or the overcharged side, depends how you'll handle it, which we'll get into in part 2. But you will kind of bring them down to just pick yourself up again. Where the balanced ruler is like, hey, if you're showing power, initiative, and autonomy and those kind of things, I love it. The balanced ruler absolutely loves it, because when you show your own power, it makes me super happy. Because that's what the balanced ruler does. The balanced ruler empowers others, inspires others. That's very important. They want everybody in their kingdom, which is your household, your business, or whatever. You want everybody to be happy and to reach their full potential. So for example, at work, if you're the boss there, it's your business, you're the king there or the queen there, you want them to become the best versions of themselves. You want to see them happy. You want to see them achieve things. You want to see them become better at what they do, become more powerful. That's a really big motivation for you. Where if you're on the two other sides of this, the imbalanced side, you will probably not do that. You will probably say it and say, yeah, I want that for you, but your actions show different. That's what will happen there. So it's very important to understand that that's an aspect that you need in many areas of life. If things go bad, which, it's life. We don't know what's going to happen. We hope that this will never happen to you or anyone else, but maybe something bad happens. Maybe someone gets seriously sick, or maybe you lose your job, or maybe you're going through a financially difficult time. We don't know. And the point is, your ruler side is the side of you that must step up in that time and say, okay, everyone, everything's going to be okay. This is what we're going to do. Here's the plan. And if you don't have a plan, you'll find a plan, but we'll make it through this. And this is how we're going to do it. So you're taking control. You're creating order, structure, and then you lead that situation. So that's the part of you that you need. And if that's not fully developed, you won't be able to do that. You will create more chaos. And that's the problem. And you see this at work, where people are leading a group in a project or whatever. If your side of the ruler isn't properly developed, you will create more chaos. People will not like to work with you. Where if it's balanced, people would love to work with you, because you're making them feel good in the process as well. You're empowering them. You're hearing them out. You're helping them on the journey. That's the nice side of the ruler. And what's very interesting is, let's go with the king and the queen symbolism with their kingdom again. And think about this for a second. What happens when the powers that's controlling this kingdom, let's say they're imbalanced rulers. So they're not very good rulers. Okay, they're not doing things for the good of the kingdom. Maybe they're selfish, or they rule in an imbalanced way, like with an iron fist, not caring what the people in the kingdom want. What will happen with that kingdom? It will deteriorate, and you know what's going to happen sometime? The kingdom is going to rebel. An imbalanced ruler will create a dysfunctional and unhappy kingdom, and this kingdom will stand up against the ruler because of this. They'll try and throw you off your throne, or they're going to try and leave the kingdom because you are an imbalanced ruler. So your kingdom rebels. They stand up against you. And you see this in families. You see this in children. How they, especially when they become a little bit older and they become a bit more wiser, they stand up against the ruler and say, no, this is not right. And they change in that way. Now just remember that children go through difficult stages. But it's up to you as the ruler of the kingdom to make sure that you handle those stages in a healthy and balanced way. Then when they get to the other side, you won't have a lot of dysfunction that goes with it. And the same thing applies for your working environment as well. If you're not a balanced ruler, your employees, the people working with you, they will rebel. They won't be, you could say, keen to live and work in your kingdom, because why? And then they'll obviously leave, or they'll stand up against you, and you don't want that. You want to create a balanced kingdom for your own sake, for your partner's sake, and also for your children's sake, or for anybody that's in your kingdom, that's working at your business or whatever. You want to create that balanced kingdom. And that's what the balanced ruler is all about. One of the things that's also important is the balanced ruler is exactly that. They're balanced, okay? So this applies to men and women. It's not gender specific. The balanced ruler owns their hardness and their softness. This is very important, because if you tip to either side, you become imbalanced, right? So if you go too soft, you become a pushover, a walkover, someone that can be manipulated. You become too hard, you become more like a tyrant. You don't care, you just rule with power, and it's cold and ruthless. You don't want to be either one of those, but you need both sides. So for example, the balanced ruler wants to make his people feel appreciated. The balanced ruler isn't someone who never gives compliments or never gives words of admiration or inspiration. The balanced ruler is someone who can, you could say, motivate others, make them feel great, and say, you know what, I see what you've been doing. I see how hard you've been working, and I recognize that. I respect that. And you're going to get far, and you give them that words of admiration, that inspiration, that lights their fire a little bit, and they can carry on and do what they need to do. That's what the balanced ruler would do. So then you need a bit of a softness. You need the gentle rule, a soft hand in those situations. But sometimes, maybe it's a person or a situation threatens your kingdom, the safety, let's say, of your household, or the safety of your business. You're going to have to tap into the harder side. And if you can't do that, you're not going to be able to protect your kingdom. You're not going to be able to stand strong, do what needs to be done. Sometimes the ruler has to make harsh decisions. Sometimes, and I spoke about this in the warrior archetype as well, maybe you're at work and you have to fire someone. You have to let them go. You don't have a choice. That's not a nice thing to do. You feel bad. You feel sorry for them. But in that situation, I'm going to have to tap into a little bit of my harder side to make that decision. Otherwise, I won't be able to do it. I'll feel too bad. Sometimes you have to tap into that side, right? So if you're balanced, you have a choice. You can tap into the hard, tap into the soft. If you're not balanced, you don't have a choice. Now, let me explain to you what I mean by you don't have a choice. If you're undercharged, you're leaning towards the soft side. So for you to tap into the hard side will be very difficult, because it's your polar opposite. And the same for the person who's overcharged, who's leaning towards the hard side. For you to tap into the soft is going to be difficult. But the balanced person is in the middle. They've put both the soft and the hard together. That's how you become balanced. If you take the soft out, you tip towards the hard side. If you take the hard out, you tip towards the soft side. Now I want to make the last point before I finish off this video. And I want to show you a couple of examples how these archetypes work together in the ruler archetype. So we've already established that, for example, to be a parent and have a family, that is the ruler archetype. So you're going to have to rule and lead your household and your family, right? So let's say you're going through a really hard time, financially, emotionally. It's not a great time for you. Now, the thing is, if you allow this situation to crush you, and you break down and you withdraw from everybody and everything, and you go into your own shell, what will happen is your kingdom will not have a ruler. You're not on your throne because you ran away. You're busy panicking. Nobody is at the steering wheel. Nobody is managing the kingdom. There's no ruler. And the thing is, this is bad, especially in the long term. because you're greatly increasing the chances that your kingdom will deteriorate and become dysfunctional, and people will become unhappy. So we as rulers, when we're in that ruler position, you have to cultivate your inner strength, and that you will get from the warrior archetype, so that you can take all these punches that life is throwing at you and still do the job, and still lead and rule. Now in part 2, I'll talk about the relationship dynamics between two people. So you and your partner, you're both co-rulers in this kingdom. So what will happen, and this happens throughout life, everybody gets to a point where they need to recharge a little bit. They're burning out for whatever the reason is. If you're in a balanced relationship, your partner, the co-ruler, can step up and they can give you the space, the slack, so that you can recharge. And then when you step up, everything's back to normal again. So they're giving you that time. So they take over. But that will only happen if you're in a relationship that allows that. And if you've got a partner that can step up and their ruler is developed so that they can do that. Now that's very important. And when they burn out, they need a break, you can step up and you can help them. So that's how the ruler dynamic works in a nutshell, in its healthy sense. So in order to get that perseverance, that determination, the focus, the courage, the strength, you will have to tap in to the warrior archetype. If you have to make a big decision, let's say in the same situation, you have to make a decision, you've got 3 options. Now, in order to gain insight into each option, to see it play out, to see which one is the wiser decision, and not just short term, but long term, you're going to have to access the magician archetype in order to do that. Now, here's the thing. If those archetypes are imbalanced, you're going to bring an imbalanced archetype into your ruler archetype, making your ruler imbalanced. Now, I have mentioned this before in the magician archetype video, but if you look at movies, stories, and legends, you usually see that the king has got an advisor. And in many of the stories, that advisor is like a wizard or a magician type character. Think of King Arthur and Merlin, or in Lord of the Rings, you have Aragorn and Gandalf. Now, that wizard helps the king to make better decisions. They provide him with insight, with wisdom, and that helps him to become a better ruler. Now, why that's cool is because we must do that on the inside. Our ruler archetype must work closely together with our magician side in order to make the best possible decisions. Now remember, the magician archetype represents our knowledge, wisdom, insight, deep thinking. So that's a very important part that we need with us when we're in the ruler archetype, because we're leading our kingdom. We have to make big decisions. And if we don't access the magician side, we can't see the long-term effects of our decisions and our actions. We're going to make decisions based on very short-term information, and then we're going to probably end up making the wrong ones. So we need the magician side of us to be developed so that we can make the right decisions and lead our kingdom in the right direction. So it's very important that we cultivate the other archetypes as well, because they feed in to our ruler archetype. Now, if you look at a ruler or a president, they usually have a council. And this council helps them to make decisions. So they'll bounce ideas off of them, gather information, and even receive constructive criticism to see where they can improve themselves. And the balanced ruler is open for this. They want that kind of feedback because it helps them to become a better ruler, which in turn helps them to create a better and happier kingdom. Now, another important thing with the ruler is when they make decisions, they want to look at all sides of the decision. They want to see what the effect is going to be straight through the kingdom. And they take that in consideration when making decisions. They don't just make a decision because they want that decision to be made. They don't do that. They're not selfish in that way. When they're going to make a decision or take an action, they want to make sure that they do it in the most responsible and the best way possible. So they'll find a mid-ground and see, okay, listen, this is the best possible decision we can make here without causing too much harm. They're not someone who just enforces their will on their kingdom. So this video is designed just to give you that idea of what a balanced ruler is like. There's someone who betters themselves for the kingdom, for the people in their kingdom. They allow people to come up to their level. I've got no problem. I'm not threatened by your power. In fact, I'm excited by it. I want you to be a better ruler than me. I want you to do that. That's amazing. That's how the balanced ruler sees things. No ego. The ego doesn't rule the balanced ruler. If you're better than me, then that's cool. I'm happy for you. And in fact, the balanced ruler would probably look at that and learn and become better themselves. They won't feel threatened trying to pull you down. That's one of the things that the balanced ruler has. And obviously to create order, to create structure, and to just make everybody feel at peace in their kingdom. To create a kingdom where everybody feels happy, everybody feels safe. And obviously, yes, there are turbulent times always, whether it's in a relationship, in life, everywhere. There are rocky times, good times, bad times. But the balanced ruler will manage it. They will maintain and contain that situation and deal with it. So that's the balanced ruler.